What famous celebrity is actually still a decent human being? Rick Moranis quit acting at the height of his career so he could focus on taking care of his kids. After the death of his wife. Andre 3000 is a super chill dude. Walks around and is so unassuming you wouldn't know he's there. Saw him playing a wooden flute on the street in Philly. Said you're Andre 3000. He just tipped his hat and kept playing. Really cool guy, just living life. Most celebrities who you don't hear much about are decent human beings. At least in a similar proportion to the rest of the world. It's true that acting has a higher share of prima donnas, but a lot of them are smart enough to not believe their own hype and just do their jobs and live their lives. But to provide a name. I met Robert Duvall a while back and he was a super nice guy. Talked mostly about how he really liked dancing the tango. I was doorman in Tribeca for a large portion of my 20s. Met more high-end celebrities than you can count. From people who were in big Super Bowl commercials. C-list actors. Up to Taylor Swift. I can confidently say that Chris Martin from Coldplay and Paul Rudd are two of the nicest guys I have ever met in my life. David Tennant. Steve Buscemi is a really down-to-earth guy. Bless his creepy little heart. Weird Al. Hugh Jackman. I'm from Latin America and one time I meet him in a not regular place to tourism. All rural people. And I can talk with him in a coffee. Is a nice man and is very kindly. Brendan Fraser. There's a reason why so many people still love him after all these years. Dolly Parton is and always was a saint. Just visited down by Tennessee and everyone absolutely loves her. Even today she lives in a relatively modest home compared to her wealth. Like $1 mill. Bill Pullman. Our Independence Day president. I worked at the school where he sent his kids. And he was hands down the nicest. Most grounded famous parent I've ever met. And I've met many celeb parents teaching at that school. He and his wife were very supportive of teachers. Always gave us these big holiday gift bags that included nuts and jams and honey made on his ranch in Montana. And were joyful, wonderful people. Their kids were amazing. Amazing. The kind of kids that cheerfully help you move tables when setting up a class or pick up something you've dropped. And of course smart and funny and talented. I don't know if Bill Pullman is famous enough to be called a celebrity, but dang it. I'll celebrate him anyway. Danny Trejo is one of the nicest guys ever. Tony Hawk. No explanation needed. Beautiful, humble human. I haven't heard anything negative about Steve Carell. Dolly Parton. He isn't alive anymore, but Robin Williams will always stand out to me. I used to work a lot of gala, awards events and movie sets as a medic years ago. I've met my handful of celebs and I met Robin Williams at a benefit. He was essentially the MC, and when he wasn't on stage talking he would come to our area and chat with my partner and I. And I swear to God he is the nicest and most hilarious person I have ever met in my entire life. Like we constantly were telling him to slow down because we didn't want to get caught laughing as the event we were at was to raise money for cancer patients. He tried to tip us afterwards too as well, which we were not allowed to accept, so he even went above us and to the owner, who then passed us down the amount he tipped us, which was generous to say the least. We'll never forget that day, to say the least. A close second as well was William Dafoe. Like he's different for sure, but man, just what a nice guy. From personal experience, I've worked with tons of famous musicians, but used to live, work next to Sarah Jessica Parker about 10 years ago, and would talk to her every day before she would take her twins for a walk and get swarmed by the press. She was an absolute gem. I'm not a Sex and the City fan but would always talk to her about Hocus Pocus and she was all about it. In contrast, Matthew Broderick is a complete prick. Daniel Radcliffe seems like a sound guy and frankly I respect the fact he made all the money he'd ever need by 14 and now just does whatever Project B feels like doing. I also think he's a very underrated actor. Andrew Garfield. A co-worker of mine played on the same college football team, Morehouse, as Denzel's son. Denzel would frequent games and events. Always sat in the bleachers with the other parents etc. At one away game, an entourage came into the bleachers and asked Mr. Washington if he would prefer to sit in the Chancellor's suite and Denzel replied, "Only if you are inviting all the parents." He stayed in the bleachers. Co-worker said Denzel knew nearly all the players' first names and their parents and loved talking football. Sam Rockwell. He lives around me and I have friends that have had random hangouts with him. They say he's super down to earth. Really chill and interesting. Paul Newman lived in Westport, CT for a very long time. He was the most down to earth guy. He'd just go about his day. Grocery shop. Go to the races. Connecticut has some racetracks. Eat at restaurants. Never signed autographs. Not because he was a dick about it. But he'd rather just talk to you and kind of refuse to accept the fact that he was celebrity. If this post takes off, I'm sure you'll get people's stories about meeting him.